Good morning, good afternoon, dear viewers, friends, and colleagues. Welcome to the channel Innovative Sustainability. Happy New Year again. So this will be, I think, our third video in the new year. So our speaker today is Ricardo Martinez Villegas, and he is specializing in the biotechnology of bioprocess development. He got his bachelor degree in science, specializing in the biotechnology engineering at Technological of Monterrey, I hope pronounced correctly. And then he followed his education at University of Waterloo, where he got master's degree in chemical engineering. And we worked together in Sanofi with Ricardo in our past term, previous work. And it was a very successful collaboration on implementation of PAT or process analytical technology, trying to improve the process. And it was great collaboration with and also with Brooker at that point, and we will have a publication together. So, Ricardo, it's great to see you on the channel. Thank you very much for joining. I know you're now pursuing different path, and today we'll be talking about the opportunities to approach to circular economy with different innovative approaches in the food processing. So, Ricardo, floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Marina. Thanks for having me in your channel. Yeah, it's a pleasure to reconnect with you. Yeah, it was a great time back in Sanofi trying to implement a few innovative technologies and trying to wiggle that regulatory process. But yeah, no,
Welcome.
definitely. Now I know our paths cross again. Different activities, but always innovating.
Great. I know you
Sounds
have
good. So
slides to share. Yes, so
yeah, I
yeah,
have some
if
slides
you
to
need,
share.
yeah, please go
Yes,
ahead.
I will then proceed with sharing my screen. Um, so for yeah, so I'll be discussing today, I guess, on behalf of Terra Bioindustries. I'm one of the co-founders and the president of the company. Uh, At Terra Bioindustries, we focus in one main mandate. It's to identifying how through a byproduct we can create high-value ingredients. The main idea for this is to transition circular economy, but doing it the right way. Now, the other thing that I want to mention that Terra Bioindustries focuses is on scaling up processes of a co-product, transforming into a new source of food, and also this covers either pet food or normal food applications, but understanding the aspect of coming and basically taking the advantage of all the product that was originally harvested, and not leaving anything behind. That's how we envision, doing a profitable way to transition to this circular economy. And with that said, I just want to very, very quickly touch on the aspect of sustainability, why we're doing this. As probably many remember, during the pandemic, we were very hit by supply chains. So one of the things that we identified as the biggest risk and actually the biggest also contributor to emissions is the scope 3. Many people and many of the calculations for carbon assessment normally just focus on the first two, which is the emissions that are directly produced by a company, and scope
Mhm.
which is in scope 1. Scope 2 covers basically whatever is connected to your electricity or your source of energy. But there is one scope that is very hard to understand and very difficult also to calculate and figure out, which is we're putting a lot of emphasis at Terra Bioindustries, which is the scope 3 emissions. This is all connected to a supply chain and the elements, indirect elements that are connected to it, right? So we need raw materials, we need disposals, we work with partners, with customers, there's transportation, and there's obviously waste management. And not many people know, but really, really from the whole emissions perspective, this tends to cover, especially in the food system, between 75 and 90% of the carbon footprints of a typical food product. Now, it's I know
Amazing.
this sounds like a big number, but it always is hard to understand, how to for calculate. So what we have, look is that there's a lot of different companies and a lot of different countries that are starting to set in place targets for reducing emissions. These are publicly traded companies, and in different jurisdictions, they're putting a lot of pressure into reducing the carbon emissions. And this is where we saw a big opportunity looking at the co-products. The co-products, we find this as an area of that is not very, very highly explored. Normally, co-products are seen either as waste that tend, and especially when it comes from food, no, the normal thinking is either we compost it or we try to make biogas or some bioenergy, but also that requires a little bit more processing. Or in some other cases, this is just basically given to animal feed at a very, very low cost. So what we realize is that many of these initial goods or basically process intermediates leave behind a lot of the nutritional properties of these products. And just to give a big example, so every year worldwide, there's about 1 billion tons of agri-food side streams. And normally in the eyes of Terra, we see that this really goes to waste. We're creating energy, creating some other animal feeding is good. We see that there's more mouths to feed than, and it's very important to maximize those initial resources that were used to harvest, in the case of grains, for instance, and exploit the whole grain in totality, as opposed to just use the starch or use one of the proteins or one component of it, and then just get rid of the rest. But why
Amazing.
this
The
hasn't?
number.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Just like shocking
yeah.
almost. So
Of course, of course. And one of the things is why this hasn't been successful. It's mainly due to forming things that we have seen. This is after working in my company. There's four main challenges that we see, main roadblocks. One is the cooperation, right? Like
mm,
sometimes it's very hard to explain when you're working with a company that produces a co-product. How can they what else to do with it, or why they need to standardize it so that it can become a new raw material. There's also a lack of cooperation sometimes with the uptakers, right? With the companies that can actually collect these, because you're challenging a little bit sometimes their business model. So you really, really need to put a lot of substance into justifying why they have to change things. And at the end of the day, even the consumers, right? Like there is this concept that sometimes something that was processed or pre-processed is waste, which in or that doesn't fit the food standards, which is not in reality. There's many products that were processed following all food standard guidelines. They meet
right.
all quality regulatory and elements, but the the company that originally took the first raw material didn't that's not their business model. They don't know what else to do with it, right? So for them, it's
Right.
just easier to dispose it. This is the other thing, as I was connecting to my previous comment, the industry misalignment,
Mm,
understanding, what is still food grade, what is not, what's regulatory approved, etc. And obviously expensive processing. There has been, and again, I'm not obviously I'm not saying that our processing or our approach is better than others, but we've seen that there has been a big momentum around fermentation, which is great. Obviously, I was training fermentation. That requires a bit of a standardization of the raw material in order to make something feasible, right? And that adds steps, that's cleanings, adds some other elements in order to make it fermentable and make it to the standards of having a more consistent fermentation. Marina also knows if you have standard fermentation, you're gonna get standard production. You're gonna hit your
yield.
target
Yeah.
goals for yields. If you give a lot of variability, those yields can be very, very affected. So what we've seen is, sometimes there's this misconnection with the scale up that exists also at the moment with the future cost of the production. And this tends to present a more expensive processing. And the last one is obviously lack of initiatives, right? Not all, even from countries, companies, etc., are everyone aligned on the main goal or how they're defining sustainability targets or revenue targets. So all those different things we've seen that really make challenging, having some of this transition into circular economy within the food system. And the last thing, if we just talk very technical, sometimes it's also about the performance of these co-products. We need to understand fully the co-product. You need to understand that the co-product undergo some sort of a removal of some property, but then but it was left behind with some other new property, right? So you need to think about what is the new performance that this co-product will have. Developing synergies is very important. If you work alone in silos, it's going to be very difficult to do something. And the other one, which I find extremely important in order to make sure that that this transition to circular economy works, is the revenue sharing model. Like if we just want to take everything, there's going to be a very low initiative and cooperation. But if you share revenue with some of the different players, and you don't have to necessarily share revenue in the sense of cash, it's also revenue in the sense of carbon. It's also revenue in the sense of how you're helping the other companies reduce some of their challenges that they have. So from these three pillars, I basically, one of the things that we've seen that could really help transition into this circular economy is, first of all, cooperate with the supplier, right? So if you want to use a co-product, you need to understand how the co-product is generated. You don't want to create a new challenge for that company to create a co-product, because then otherwise they have to do a big investment, or it's just too complicated for them, right? Understand that, for them it's a roadblock to process a new product, and whereas for you could be a raw material. You also need to understand and basically be in the shoes of that other person. You don't want to create them more trouble, right? The next thing that we see is that you need to be very, obviously, industry compliant. You need to check that the product is processed in a food grade standards that is compliant with the regulations. Otherwise, you cannot go from waste into food, right? Like but you can always go food to food, right? So just understand that
yes, I got your point. Yes, it's clear.
Yeah. Exactly, it needs to be clean process. And then the next one is around simplifying processes, and that goes to my previous point in terms of cooperation. Where there's companies that are experts in fermentation, let's just be experts in fermentation. Don't overcomplicate the question on trying to take some co-product and then do initial transformations. That cooperate with someone else, cooperate with some companies that actually can help you do that. Right, their specialization is on the valorization of that co-product, on the uptaking of the co-product, and do maybe just initial transformation. So, and this goes also with the revenue sharing. Like, don't try to get all the highest profit initially. Do a little cooperation. You can pay a little premium once you establish the supply chain and establish your standards and cooperate with other company. Both of you are going to have a very, very nice profit situation, but don't be too overly greedy. That's one of the things. And definitely always try to think of simplifying process. Marina, you know this obviously from working in the industry. True. Simple processes make more profit than overcomplicated processes where you have to further improve, optimize, and reduce times, etc. Right? So always
it's design, right? You design it's more simple steps, like more continuous if possible. Yeah, I get it. And I think for viewers, just to visualize, it's more like we try to do it like more linear. We say word streamlined, but in a sense, it's less checks, right? More checks embedded in the process so that you
That is
see real-time outcome, and then it becomes simpler to maintain and less issues, less, I think,
that is
junctions, right? That's also you mean where you have to
exactly.
switch and start again on,
That is
logistics.
correct. That is correct. Exactly. The logistics tend to be a big nightmare, especially working in manufacturing. And the last one that I want to cover, obviously, you need to create revenue. So there's something that I call the value realization. What I mean with this is it's not so understand obviously the co-product that you have in hand, but understand what you can create from that co-product that will create the highest value. And obviously, it can be value in terms of big volumes. It can also be high value in terms of a maybe a very specific compound that is being extracted, etc. But understand that focus the it's part of the model into understanding that co-product so that it can actually create that high value revenue that obviously helps to pay for the whole equation, right? So co-product doesn't necessarily need to be thought of like, oh yeah, I'm going to compost it. No, there's a lot of things that could be extracted. Think obviously, as I mentioned before, in a simplistic way, connected to other other collaborators. You know what I mean, so that all of you can create and realize a high value from that co-product. No, and sorry that I keep going on this explanation, but that's why at Terra we focus into these main pillars. We look very closely into the raw material. We provide obviously a risk assessment towards it, understand how it comes, what can it be derived, and we adapt scalable processes to it. We don't go again starting from the beginning where it comes from. What is the most immediate source of revenue from a small transformation to thinking of a longer term transformation, how to adapt our processes and our collections to food standards, food safety. And as I mentioned before, in terms of the value realization, identify a product validation and best market fit for those things that are being extracted. That's one of the areas that at Terra we're we're talking obviously about implementing tools like AI that help us obviously understanding the best market fit, right? Like you can understand market fit from conventional ingredients. Now, how can we tap into that conventionality, but from a co-product realization? So with tools like AI, that's where we aim to innovate, and obviously we gather all of the data that we normally obtain from our processes, from our innovation, and then we put this into these models, and then we try to understand how this matches the status quo, and how can we solve a problem from something that maybe exists at the moment, or where there is a lack of and there's a new need, right? And yeah, and obviously regulatory compliance, right? I always and Marina used to know from me, I was very adamant on looking at the most complicated path for regulatory. Be simple, as I mentioned before. If the co-product, don't try to overcomplicate the question when you present this to a regulatory officer.
Yes, true.
Be very simple. Like if don't be very creative on your marketing. I heard this before. Be very creative on your marketing, but be very simple on your regulatory.
Yes.
Why? Because if
Streamline,
you
streamline.
exactly, if you complicate your equation with a regulatory officer, goodbye. You have a very long path of justifications versus if you have something very simple for them to understand, it will make your life much easier.
Yes,
And then the
because
last
it's
one is always,
legal,
yeah,
right? It's legal. So for legal,
exactly,
you want
exactly.
clear and see which article it really matches so that the conversation starts from the right, like from the right foot from the beginning.
That's correct. That's
Right
correct.
question, right answer, and clear path. Yeah, for sure. It's always difficult,
Exactly,
by the way,
exactly.
to find this
I agree. I
simplicity.
agree.
It's very difficult.
I know, and yeah,
And
I
it's
always invite companies to, especially when they're working with food products, I know it tends to be difficult, but read a little bit of those regulatory dossiers that are already there. Most of them are public. If you go into the FDA website, you can find a lot
Right.
of the frameworks that exist already. Sometimes they use complicated wording, but just try to understand. And then think of how you can put in layman terms your new process or new creation, and then try to adapt it to these things. And then the last thing, obviously, cooperate with your end customers. Again, don't try to oversell them on something. If you're trying to develop a market, try to always help yourself from even smaller companies so that you're providing them with something maybe at a discounted price or something like that. But at the end of the day, they help you understand that market fit and help you understand, how to better improve your product, right? This is, I guess, this whole mandate of like being circular. That's why I always present like you have to cooperate with both the supplier, you have to cooperate with your end customer. And I know it can sound complicated, but believe me, and this goes to my next point. This goes, so I'll skip just to things, but uh, they're very cooperative. The end users and the providers tend to be very cooperative. But going back to Terra Bioindustries, so that I know I talked a lot about many things on the background of what we have done and how we came to this point. But at Terra Bioindustries right now, we're focusing on the one main co-product, which is brewers' paint grains. So this is the co-product that is derived from breweries. And to the people that don't understand, I get these questions all the time, like, well, that sounds like a very complicated term. Well, in simple term, is basically malted barley. Malted barley is commonly used in many industries. It's commonly consumed by many people. It's a very rich grain. So you have barley that was harvested by amazing farmers that put a lot of effort.
Right.
Then it was malted to do a pre-germination of the product. And in the breweries, the main product that they extract is a starch, right? But they leave behind proteins and fibers. So what we realized was that this is a very, very rich ingredient, and if it's just given to animal feed, where it's great, it's taking away from food from people, right? In many cultures, obviously barley is considered a very, very precious grain, a very nutritious grain. So let's keep using that grain, right? Let's not just waste it. And some of my analogies, instead of feeding a cow, let's feed kid, right? Like there's a lot of protein, there's a lot of fiber that can be extracted from it. And what we realized at Terra is that in order to make this thing profitable, we wanted to take advantage of our knowledge in bioprocessing and adapt a little bit more simplistic approach using enzymes as opposed to something sometimes a bit more complicated than fermentation, and then just adapt conventional processing to do these extractions. So what our process at the moment with barley, with the barley leftover that is that we recover, we extract three ingredients. We produce a malt syrup, which is a first of its kind. We produce a barley protein and also a dietary fiber coming from barley. And just talking a little bit of why this is important for both the end users and the producers. The producer obviously has a byproduct. So in a situation where there's lack of cooperation, the byproduct becomes a problem, right?
Right. Right.
It's just as simple as that. Like I cannot use it, I need to get rid of it. Why sometimes there is no incentive to collaborate? Well, there's a this leads to increasing emissions, more expensive ingredients, industry silos, low profit margins, and some costly solutions. And then if you look at it from the food manufacturer's perspective, they're trying to also innovate by adapting new ingredients. But some of these new ingredients, in many cases, they tend to have long supply chains, right? And a good example is right now with the cocoa production. With
Right.
cocoa products, majority of the cocoa actually comes from Africa, and there's many countries that, but alternatively, beer is produced almost everywhere in the world. Now, at Terra, we're manufacturing a cocoa alternative that can help reducing the amount of cocoa powder. Why? Because I mean everybody wants chocolate, but
Yes.
bringing more cocoa from way more exquisite or more farther places obviously adds into the supply chain costs. But if you use something that was already processed at a very short supply chain, which is beer or a derivative of a beverage product
Right,
that
right.
use barley, you can get something from a short supply. And these go. I just want to talk a little bit about a project that we have right now that speaks about this collaboration that we have with some partners for the brewery. This byproduct, where it was a problem, now becomes a source of revenue because we pay them or we give them a bit of a split of the pie in terms of the revenue that we share.
Mhm.
We provide them a and then to the end consumers. So we're working right now with three main divisions. One is a more brewing, more focused on fermentation. So it's on yeast manufacturers, someone who produces also vegan products that want to augment the protein and fiber content, and pet treats. So for people who don't know this, barley is a non-allergenic product for dogs. So it's very nutritious for them as well, and they love it, right? So we're working with a pet treat company. For them, it's a nice short supply chain because we're all in Canada, and we can get literally the product from less than 200 kilometers surrounding you. This obviously reduces cost from obviously transportation, promotes industry synergies, and we produce obviously these zero waste solutions. So with that, I just want to close up this one element about always think about, so sharing profit reduces your risk. Splitting the revenue and profit obviously helps incentivize this transition, and when you reduce risk, you reduce cost on your end, right? Because you have someone who wants to use this or wants to
Yes,
test even.
yes.
So then when you cooperate, you reduce also risk on having to put something in someone's door. And then, there's a bunch of challenges. When you want to cooperate from some cost sharing perspective, people are more open. So, and with this, you can actually achieve circularity. This is the way we see that we can achieve circularity, being a win-win for everyone. So at Terra Bioindustries, we're simplifying circularity. So you can expect more from your byproducts. And with that, I will stop.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great presentation, and I think it's a great concept. I'm just very conscious about time. I think we only have 3 minutes left to wrap up. But I think for the viewers, previous talks you heard that they were on healthcare, they were also on pharmaceutical industry, and their way to contribute towards sustainability from all different angles, process and analytical. Here we have a shift from somebody who was in pharmaceuticals for a long time and now into the food manufacturing and looking for how to use and reduce the waste, and actually doesn't let it become waste. Like you said, the key thing, keep it at food stage, and you shift. So it's a cooperation and collaboration. I think it's also, maybe I'm getting more philosophical, but in the theme that, society needs to be more cohesive, more connected, and also think about others and what they leave to others, environment, go beyond just self and the profit, right? Just thinking self of the company they're working on, think more beyond that. And I think that fits the concept as well. I know we all have to generate profit in order to sustain ourselves and our families, but nevertheless, I think with your perspective, it's going beyond that scheme. It's more towards getting the, different players collaborating. It's more collaborating mode where, like you said, you de-risk and you allow others to play with you and win. So this is different concept, and it's really attractive. And I hope we hear more from you on a different topic, maybe same topic but different examples. Definitely. But at this point, I think thank you very much. Anything else? Maybe for a minute, if you want to add something. We still have a minute for our pub.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you obviously a little bit of promotion of the company, for if you have a co-product that you wanna valorize or figure out what to do with it, you can contact me. My email is my first name dot my last name, so Ricardo dot Martinez at terrabioindustries.com. Yeah, we're always looking to collaborate with new alternatives. And for the viewers that are um, in the Emirates, definitely there's a lot of opportunities. And I know there's a big production of dates in the region,
Yes,
also milk
yes, yes.
co-products. Everything has a co-product, believe me, everything has a co-product. So, and big volumes make very interesting business models for both the producer of the co-product and the end applications. So yeah, and as Marina just mentioned, the cost sharing model helps a lot with de-risking your situation. If the producer of the co-product cost share some of these initiatives, makes things easier to incentivize this transition. But yeah, if we want to achieve this circularity, we all need to split a little bit in the cost.
Thank you. Thank you, Ricardo. Dear viewers, so this is our first recording on the circular economy, on the food processing, different perspective and very innovative idea that Ricardo just shared. So stay tuned. We'll see more videos and different aspects. So, but for now, so long. Stay tuned. Thank you again. Thank you, Ricardo. Bye for now.